Hello everyone, it's Julie Hutchison here from Think, Be, Do Leadership, home of the Quiet Leaders Launchpad. And after an epic fail where I probably did a live with no sound or video just now, the topic I want to talk about is so you think you're a good listener, and how important listening is to leaders and quiet leaders, and even more important if you are doing lives. So today I want to talk about this, listening. So maybe you've been in a place where you have felt like somebody's not listening to you, where you felt like they're just saying, oh, and spinning you up, or they're gazing off into the distance and looking for a better place to be rather than listening to you. Or maybe you've been that person who's not been a good listener, where you have heard somebody say, or you've met them and they've heard somebody say their name, you've shook their hand and you have walked away and then thought, what was their name? I can't remember, because you weren't really listening, even though you thought you were. And maybe you've been involved in a conversation where people are talking, but nobody is really listening. So there's a group of people and they're all just waiting for a space in the conversation to say their thing, about themselves or about what they want to say, but they're not actually listening to the other person. So it's kind of like lots of one-way conversations, or not conversations, one-way output, but not actually a conversation and hearing what people have got to say. So nobody's really interested in anything else. Maybe you're guilty of that, or maybe you know people who are guilty of that. And either way, I would like to talk about today is, how does it feel when people do these things, when they're not listening to you, when they're more busy thinking about what they're going to say next, or they've forgotten what you're saying, or they're just clearly trying to rush you along. How does it feel? Well, we know that when this happens to people, they feel like you don't care. They feel like you don't really need to know what they've got to say, and that you have no interest in what they've got to say. They see right through you, even when you're nodding and saying they see right through you. So as a leader, it's really important that we don't do this, because if we do, we're going to lose the trust, we're going to lose respect, and then ultimately we're going to lose performance in our business, because people aren't going to give you the effort that you would love, because really we don't deserve it if we're not listening to them when they talk to us. So what I want to do today is have a conversation about that and give you some tips around how we as leaders can be better at listening. So let's have a think about some of these things then. The one that I wanted to talk about first was the waiting to speak, and why we do this. So when somebody's talking to you, and what we're doing is we're often not really concentrating on what that person's actually saying. We're just kind of letting it flow, and it's just like wah 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 wah, and a bit like that used to be on Charlie Brown. It's just sort of words coming in, but we're not listening. And actually all we're doing is we're thinking about me. It's all about me. And I want now to tell whoever it is what's gone on in my day, or what's my problem, or please listen to me. So we're focusing on ourselves here. And when we focus on ourselves, then we're just going to wait for our opportunity to tell them what we want to tell them, how bad my day is, and all those things that we're going to pump out there, and what we want to give them. And the problem with that is that we really don't gather all the good information that we're getting from other people. And so it's a pointless conversation, and it's very frustrating if you've ever been in one of those conversations. So we need to be able to literally stop and ask ourselves the question, am I really listening to this person, or am I just waiting to tell them my stuff? And imagine that there's two people in this conversation, and then I want you to just have your imaginary friend, this third person in the conversation, watching on. Just imagine this person looking in, or maybe it's you looking in on this as a third person, and asking yourself the question, how is that conversation going? Is that person listening? Am I paying attention? So the very first thing I think that we really need to do, point one, is to start getting conscious of our listening skills. As with anything you want to improve, being conscious of where you are to start with is a good start, because then you can see what the problem is, or if you're actually a really good listener. So it might be you ask yourself, it might be you ask people in your team, how good a listener am I? Because quite often we can fool ourselves and think we're really good. I hear it all the time from people who are leaders who say to me, no, I'm a really good listener. Particularly people who are more on the introvert scale often say, oh, that's one of my skills. But actually, it's not necessarily true. because we're thinking of ourselves and we're just waiting for that space to get in. And the other thing is when we think we're giving a good impression and we're really not. And I've got some people close to me that do this to me a lot. And sometimes I think, is it me? Am I that boring? Or is it that I've just not gained their attention? I'll give them that. But what happens is people can say, and try and rush you, like, yep, I got that. And they try and rush people. Now, if you've ever been guilty of this, you probably did, because you're like, no, I know, I've understood, or I think I've understood what you're trying to say. I've got enough information, and now I'm getting frustrated because I want to move on. Well, the problem is, for the other person, they have a need to get information out, and you may not have heard everything they need to say. So when we go, yep, and try to rush them because we want to do something else, or we think we've had enough, or they're boring us, then, excuse me, when we do that, then again, we lose the credibility, because they know we're not really paying attention to them. They know that we're rushing them, and they know that in their eyes, they've got something important to say. So we are showing there that we just don't care, or we're not giving them the time of day. We're not really paying attention to what they believe they've got to give. So of course the relationship is going to be worse because of it, because people they think, well, you don't care, then I don't care, so I'm not going to put the effort in. So that's another one we need to really pay attention to ourselves, is, am I rushing them? Am I really truly paying attention? So the other question is, if you are paying attention, my son always says this, I was listening. So and I say to him, well, show me that you're listening then. And that's the other thing. When you think you are listening, then it's really helpful to show that person, to acknowledge what people are saying, because when you do that, then they feel like you are listening, even if you're maybe not. But that acknowledgement, and a true acknowledgement, means that they feel heard. And when somebody feels heard, then of course they are going to feel like you respect them and that you are actually listening to what they've got to say. So making people feel heard is a really important thing. Even if I hear it quite often, my son, he says, oh, I was listening. So even if you were actually listening, they need to know you were listening. Okay. So then there's the other one. Let me see. Forgetting names. Not really paying attention. And that's the most horrible thing, because if you are not listening, and it's not just about names, but say you've agreed to some actions in a meeting, or you've agreed to what's happening, or you've been hearing what's going on, and you're in the moment and you think you're listening, and then you walk out of the room and you haven't got a clue what was said, and you've forgotten what you were supposed to be doing, and you didn't make a note, and you can't remember who they were anyway. Not great. So we need to find a way of really being able to take on board information, rather than just nodding and it letting go superficially over our heads, and thinking about other things. So I don't know about you, but I've what's the word, drifted from time to time when I'm supposed to be listening to somebody, and the bus goes past or something happens outside, and your attention is pulled away. It's very, very easy to stop listening. So we need to be able to bring ourselves back to focus. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is, as I said, was be conscious. The second thing, I think, is that we need to use that consciousness and say, no, I'm going to actively train my brain to listen better. I'm going to use some skills, but I'm going to practice my listening. I'm going to get feedback on my listening, and I'm going to listen out for whether I'm listening. Okay, so we need to train our brain. But let me give you a couple of techniques or little tools that will be useful to you. I need to take a drink. Hang on one second. It's better. Too much talking, not enough listening. So the first one is if you really want to help people to know that you are definitely listening, so creating those relationships and making people feel heard, and if you actually want to remember what's being said, then the easiest way to do that, in terms of feeling and remembering, is to stop and summarize what somebody said, because it's like a marker in the sand. You're drawing a line that says, I've got the information up to here. So you're kind of like implementing it into your brain. Is that the right word? But drawing it in your brain. So, for example, if somebody's telling you a big long story about something, you just say, well, can I just stop you there? I just want to make sure I've got that right. Is it X and Y. Oh, and you did some Z. Yeah. So I don't know if you were ordering a menu, Chinese menu or something like that. It was like, oh, so what you're saying is that you really like, I'm vegan, so we'll go for that. You really want tofu and you don't want egg noodles, and it's really important that we don't put any chicken in it. Is that what you're saying? So if I was the waitress, for example, and I'm going to feel heard because that person has said all these things back to me, and I can say yes, or I can say, oh no, you've missed one thing. Now, what that does is, in your mind, it helps you to remember because you've summarized it, you've made a list in your mind, you've stopped and summarized what somebody said. In their mind, they feel heard, and also you've clarified it for them. So if they hadn't explained it properly, they can re-explain it to you to make sure you have got all the information you need, but also they can see if they're certain about what they said. Yeah, so you're kind of helping them to make sense of what they're saying. But at the end of the day, the other thing is that it really makes them feel like you listened and you heard what they had to say, and you've got it. Not least when you walk away, you're going to remember it because you've imprinted it in your brain. That was the word I was looking for. Okay, so summarizing is a fantastic and simple way of remembering and making people feel that you've really heard them. Okay, so it goes towards relationships, it makes people feel good, and it makes people feel that you respect them. And of course, then they're going to want to work with you. Now, along with that, I think I kind of mentioned it there, is checking in, checking the understanding. So not just summarizing. So if you were to say something like, so what you said was X, Y, and Z, then somebody might feel like, oh, you're telling me what I said. No, that's not right. But if you were to soften that by saying, is it right what I'm saying then? Or have I got it right? This is what you said, X, Y, and Z. You're checking in with them. Okay, so you're asking, have you got it right? Not just presuming that you've got it right. So checking understanding. Did I get that right? Have I understood you right? It goes an awful long way to somebody feeling really good about you listening to them. And of course, if you've got it wrong, then you're going to find out anyway. But when you find out that you got it wrong, it's not doesn't feel bad. It's not a conflict. It makes it a really nice conversation because it's easy for them to say, well, no, you got a little bit wrong there. Okay, so really, really important to summarize. Really important to check on understanding. And that's the tip I wanted to give you today, because if you do that, you're conscious of trying to listen to somebody and you then apply it's about them, not necessarily just all about you and what you want to say, then you will be a far, far better listener. Now, these tools and techniques, and there's more of them, are in our Leaders Launchpad that we are running at the moment, and we are launching a new Quiet Leaders Launchpad very, very soon. Look out for, we're doing a training next week, no, week after next, October the 7th. Look out for that, because on the Leaders Launchpad, we look at this, we look at lots of other elements of being a good leader, but this is one that's going to make or break you, because people will trust you, people will want to be with you. So join us on the training next on October the 7th. You'll have to look out for it on my profile because I haven't written it down here, but I'll probably try and put it in the comments. If you have any questions about joining the Quiet Leaders Launchpad, please message me, put a comment in below, or private message me. That's fine. Always happy to have a conversation, because what we're doing there is we're helping leaders like you to grow confidence and to grow skills to be the best leader that you can be, so that you can have the right impact on your teams to increase performance and therefore the ability to succeed in business, whether that be yours or you're in somebody else's. You might get a promotion, you might actually start your own business, or you might be growing your business as it stands. Whatever it is, you need those leadership skills to be able to do it. So give us a shout, let us know what you think, and tell me, how do you grade yourself? Are you a 10 out of 10 at listening? Are you a 0 or somewhere in between? Let me know, and I shall hope to see you soon. We'll be doing our next live very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.